I would like to call the Charter Township of Chesterfield regular township board meeting to order for Tuesday, December 19th, 2023 at 7 p.m. Could we all stand, face the flag for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Item 3, roll call. Clerk Berry.
Supervisor Kersten.
Here.
Trustee Anderson.
Here.
Trustee Joseph.
Here.
Trustee DeMink.
Here.
Trustee Vosberg.
Here.
Clerk Berry is here. And Treasurer Elliott asked to be excused.
That's correct. Item 5, approval of agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion to approve the agenda.
Motion
Support.
by Trustee DeMink, supported by Trustee Vosberg. Clerk Berry.
Trustee DeMink.
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Supervisor Kersten.
Aye.
Clerk Berry, aye.
Item 5, presentations. There are no presentations scheduled tonight. Item 6, department reports. Any department reports? Trustee Anderson.
Thank you. If you are interested in attending the Chesterfield Township Citizens Public Safety Academy, you have until January the 8th to apply for it. It'll be held February 6th through April the 16th. Again, final time to enroll is January the 8th. You can go to the Chesterfield Township Police Department site, and there's a link there you can click on for the application. Thank you.
Trustee Joseph? No, sir. Clerk Berry.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Board, I have a report on the upcoming election education program that the clerk's office is implementing for the upcoming 2024 presidential primary, as well as the entire 2024 election cycle. As you are aware, the township has made quite a few changes in response to the Proposal 22-2 mandates, as well as to help mitigate some of the costs that will be incurred from those mandates. One of the things that we are required to do by the Bureau of Elections, and it is good practice as well, is that we are putting together an educational program that will inform voters of all of the changes and what that means to them. Some of them, in fact many, will have changes in precincts, precinct locations, and various other elements that will impact their voting in the 2024 election cycle. We will be putting together a voter guide that will go out at the beginning of January to let voters know what those changes are. There will be the new precinct map will be included, as well as the various ways that individuals can vote and who they need to contact should they have any issues or concerns in exercising any of those options. We are also mailing out in very short order the new voter ID cards. Nearly everyone in the township will be receiving a new voter ID card because they will be impacted by those changes. And we also plan to send a letter as well explaining why they are receiving a new voter ID card and what that means to them. In addition to that, we will be recording a series of videos that will be available on our website, as well as being sent to any broadcasting entities in order to explain certain pieces of each piece of the legislation or each part of the changes, which we think will be helpful. So we're taking a multimodal approach. We will be doing mailings. We will be doing videos. We are also doing in-person explanations or in-person presentations as well. We have reached out to all of the homeowners associations, as well as all of the senior homes and any of the other group residences to ask them if they would like us to come in and explain to their residents or to their members how the changes will be impacting them as well. So we have reached out to all of them. Some have gotten back with us, and we have gotten some of those on the calendar. So just an update on what we are doing to make sure that the electors here in Chesterfield are aware of all of the changes that will be impacting them in the 2024 election cycle. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee DeMink.
Some announcements from Parks and Rec Leisure Services. The Parks and Rec Department hosted the annual holiday coloring contest for children ages 12 and under, with the winners chosen on December 15th. One in each of the 4 age categories received a prize pack and were featured on the Parks and Recreation Facebook page. All contest entries are displayed up here on the front of the board table. Congratulations to the 2023 winners. They are Zoe, age 1, Reagan, age 5, Camden, age 8, and Michaela, age 11. Open space remains on the Beautification and Tree Board. Residents interested in serving on this commission are encouraged to fill out an application form on the website. Thank you, Mr. Supervisor.
Item 7, public comments. If there are public comments allowed on agenda items only, 3 minutes. The clock will begin when you speak. If you would state your name for the record. Public comments.
Joe Kadich, I live in Sutton. Wanted to say something about L, which you're going to approve $171,000 to start the engineering on the sewer extension that we inherited or forced upon by the county. That came with $11 million worth of repair needed. You grabbed it, you took it, and now you're starting the engineering on it. The problem I have with this is I asked before about where are you going to allocate the grant monies that we have. You haven't said yet. The only one that came out so far is you want to spend $2.3 million buy a school, completely ignoring what has to be done to this sewer and the rest of the sewer system in the township. You ran away from it when we had the flood, claiming there was no responsibility on your part, although you haven't done anything in the 3 years you're here to upgrade or fix any of the sewer system. The problem I have with this, by doing it piecemeal, instead of saying, we're going to take all of this grant money, or part of this grant money, and make it one big thing, including the engineering and what it's going to cost to repair that thing, all you're doing is enabling yourself to use that grant money for something that you want, that nobody else wants. And what'll happen when the sewer starts coming due, all the bills for this sewer and the other sewer out there, they're going to be on our back. And we've already paid for money that you've misspent, about, I calculate, between you and Nacavetti, about $15 million over the last 7 or 8 years that we're going to have to suffer from. Now, some of you came to the meeting that Trustee Joseph put on, hearing from the people that had their homes damaged from the flood, either through the sewer backing up or the floods in the system. Something happened there. There's something wrong with our system. It hasn't been maintained the way it should. Brian, you got ticked off at Speaker for saying something about your father, yet here your whole legacy, your father's legacy, is going to hell, and you're on board with it, apparently. I would suggest that you vote this down, make him come out with the total cost, put it all in one big thing, and spend that grant money right now on what it's going to take to pay for this sewer. Other than that, we're going to pay for it out of our pocket again, and he's going to get a school. And by the way, the $2.3 million for that school, I already bought that. It was in my school taxes. So he's going to spend another $2.3 million to buy something we already own. All you
John Speaker, Chesterfield Township. On the bill run, I've asked before, I noticed that the phone charges for the Verizon are getting way out of hand, where we were paying $40 per phone. Now the charges are up to $160. Just to give you an example, under the trustees, We were paying, it was $140, and now we're paying $306.52, which is double. I noticed, again, under the supervisor's office, there were some photo ops for a couple functions to the Township conference, one for Brad for 85, and the other one for Karen Garby for 85, and then there was another one for the Anchor Bay Chamber, and it looked like it was assigned to Karen Garby. Under the Treasurer's office, I noticed the Verizon Wireless was double too. It was $116.91. Under the Facilities and Management, we had, I don't remember this coming to the board, interchange landscaping contract for $4,400. So I'm unclear who Uniclips is for the 23 landscaping. So if you can expand on that, I would appreciate it. And the other thing too, getting out of control, are the lease vehicles on the bill run. I mean, if we're as solid money-wise as, you know, a few of these board members claim to be, why are we leasing the vehicles? Why are we not buying the vehicles and putting them in our fleet? I mean, the amount of money, we're paying over $400 for an Escape, anywhere from $400 to $600, depending on what department you look at, to lease these vehicles versus buying the vehicles. I mean, you know, you lease vehicles where you're not going to put a ton of miles on. This is backwards in the thought process here and what you guys are doing. And then the other thing, too, that I wanted to comment on was I noticed that when Mr. Kadich was up here and he made a remark, I don't know what it is with the sign language coming from this end, but, you know, my understanding is the supervisor runs this meeting, not a board member on here telling him to cut the mic or this. It's ridiculous. So he can control the meeting. It's up to him to control it. And that's it. Thank you.
Any further comments?
Mike Gorton, 50393 Bauer. So I'm looking at agenda item M, and it says approve recommendation for the Department of Public Service to enter into a 60-month lease for 2 vehicles. And I may be missing something from here, but I'm looking at the math here, and so 60 months is 5 years. And it says $23,633 per year. That amounts to over $118,000 total over a 5-year period. And looking at the vehicles, doing a quick search for both of them, because I'm assuming this cost is for both of them together, the total cost I found for the high end, like the sticker price, was $40,000 for the crew cab and around $50,000 for the transit van. So that means around $90,000 to buy them and own the vehicles as assets versus almost $120,000 to lease them and not have them as assets. I'm kind of confused on what the budgetary action for that would be. Essentially, you're spending more money to not own something, and 5 years is a long time for a lease. I just kind of not comprehending the logic behind that. If there's any reason to not just buy the vehicles outright, and if you don't want them after 5 years, you sell them and at least make some of that money back. I guess I'm not understanding why you would lease for that and spend so much money. So I hope that gets addressed when that item comes up. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments? Any further comments?
Good evening. Janice Young. Item 10L, Phase 2 of the Chesterfield Interceptor. Actually, before I start on that, I do want to just thank the board again for making us speak on items before we know what's being presented. We probably ask a lot of questions that we don't need to ask, but we don't know what's going to be discussed, so here we go. Item 10L, Phase 2 of the Chesterfield Interceptor. I would like to request an outline of this project as a whole. It's too hard for the residents to go back and look at various board meetings and videos to piece together the information on this project. I'd like to see a 1 or 2 page ongoing summary of the anticipated cost per phase, the actual cost per phase as it progresses, and the start date as well as the completion date for each phase. Also, I'd like to see how each phase is being paid for. I know the county had $320,000 in leftover funds that were supposed to cover 80% of Phase 1 repairs. Have we received that money? Tonight's agenda states there is a, quote, $5 million earmark, unquote. So I'm assuming that is the grant that Senator Kevin Hertel helped with, which is to fund the first 2 phases of the project. It would be a great benefit to the residents if the township could show its math, in a sense, on this project so the residents can stay up to date on it. This is obviously going to take some time to complete, and the residents should be able to see at a glance where the project stands. Item 10N, voting requirements. We're looking at spending over $9,000 for a temporary space in a building that we don't own. What happens to that space after the election is over? Is it simply torn down at an additional cost? And if it's a school, there's already classrooms in there. Why couldn't we use existing classrooms for the early voting? The agenda indicates it's paid from the clerk's departmental funds. I'm not sure what that is. I'm assuming that my money is funding that, though. And what about grants from the state? I know that they do have grants available out there for it. And if it's temporary space is required and it's or a necessity, why would we not apply it to the state for grants on those to accommodate that? And on 10M, real quick, that is a pretty pricey lease for 5 years. Does that cost include fitting them for our police department, the light bars, the decals, the radios, and such? Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments? Any further comments? Item 8, the consent agenda. Clerk Berry.
All items under the consent agenda are considered routine by the board and will be enacted in one motion. There is no separate discussion of these items. If discussion of any item is required by a board member, it will be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately. A, approval of the minutes of the regular board meeting of December 12th, 2023. B, approval of the payment of bills as submitted by the Finance Department. And C, receive and file the Treasurer's quarterly report.
A motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion by Clerk Berry, supported by Supervisor Kersten. Clerk Berry.
Clerk Berry, aye. Supervisor Kersten.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
No.
Trustee DeMink.
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Item 9, public hearing. There are 2 scheduled public hearings tonight. The applicants are here. We will make a motion to open. I'm sorry. Clerk Berry, yes, I'm sorry.
Item 9A is to conduct a public hearing on December 19th, 2023, to hear comments on an application for an industrial facilities exemption certificate submitted by RoboVent Solutions Group, Inc. for the speculative building located at 52029 Sierra Drive, Chesterfield Township, Michigan, 48047.
So moved.
Motion by DeMink, supported by Supervisor Kersten, to open the public hearing. Clerk Berry.
Trustee DeMink.
Aye.
Supervisor Kersten.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg. Aye. Clerk Berry, aye.
The public hearing is open at 7:20. The applicants are here. If they would like to approach the podium and make a presentation, the floor is yours.
Okay. Good evening. My name is Conrad Shuey. I'm here on behalf of the property owner, which is BKG Dominion 23 Square 1 LLC, and then the tenant for the building, RoboVent, will come up and speak after me. So we're here tonight to respectfully request the approval of the IFT application as submitted. We think the application and merits of this tenant, which they'll get into the specifics of their operations. They justify the requested 12-year abatement plus the construction period. Just to give you a bit of history on the, on the parcel. So the property's on Sierra Drive. It's actually just down the street from the DPW facility, which I've met some of these good folks here at the staff level when we were going through plans and so forth. So that park was developed in the early 1990s by the Schmidt family. They had an industrial development district approved in March of 1990. Buildings were built up until the DPW was built in 2004, and there was one additional building built in 2006, and nothing has happened since. We came in, we bought the vacant land from the Schmidt family, and then the remaining 3 buildings they owned in a park. So we kind of took the majority of their remaining assets. They did have some other vacant land there. So as part of our due diligence, and we met with the township, and we requested that that parcel of land be considered a speculative industrial development district. We work with a lot of industrial tenants, and one of the things about brand new buildings versus an existing building is a brand new building has a fairly significant tax burden, and you know at least the speculative IDD at least gave the tenant the ability to request the IFT exemption based on the merits of the tenant. So that's what we presented is the application is by the tenant RoboVent. So we requested the speculative IDD designation. We received that in March 22 of 2022, and then we went through the permitting process, started construction May 18th of 2022. So it was just important to at least have the ability, because when you're building a speculative building, if you don't have that designation in place, you sort of foreclose the ability for the tenant to request the industrial development district or the industrial facilities tax exemption later. So it was important to kind of level the playing field to at least have the potential for the tax abatement to be in place. So as a developer, we target people in the manufacturing and, you know, like versus logistics. So, you know, in this case, you know, the building is prepped for cranes, it's 30-foot clear, and so, you know, it worked, you know, this is a manufacturing tenant, they've got a lot of good, high-paying jobs, and our experience and why we like sort of that market segment with the manufacturing tenants is they tend to stick around for a very long time because they've got very large capital investments in equipment and machinery, and probably more important for them is the human capital that they invest in and bringing those employees to town and kind of the spin-off economic development of people going to lunch and, you know, buying groceries after work on the way home. So, you know, we built a speculative building. We brought them in as a tenant. We signed the lease this November. And so they're leasing effectively half of the building. It calculates out to 49.86%. But they signed a 15-year lease, and they've got a 5-year option to extend it. And it was important to them just because of the nature of their capital investment. There's cranes, there's a variety of equipment they have in place. So they wanted the assurance through the lease that they had a home for the next 20 years. And so a big part of that for them is, you know, financially, the single largest operating expense for a company as it relates to their real estate is the taxes. They're, you know, on the line item within the operating expenses, which are all paid by the tenant in a building of this nature, is the taxes. So the potential for a tax abatement was very important in our lease discussions with them to say. So, and we came in and we met with, you know, with Supervisor Kersten and others, and the staff has all been great to work with. So we appreciate the process that we've gone through and, you know, the ability to be here tonight to present to you. As far as the scoring, we're not privy to how that went. I mean, when we scored it out, we felt that we justified the 12 years based upon, you know, the fact that they're a manufacturing and assembly company. They have, like I said, they have good high-paying jobs. They got a high-skilled workforce. You know, the investment in the property was at the high end of the scale at over the $6 million. Their investment in personal property, you know, justifies the 2 years there. And then they're bringing 76 employees to town and then hiring another additional 11 as a projection. So good, strong numbers all the way around. And, you know, if you have any questions for me as sort of the developer shepherding this through, I'm happy to answer. But on behalf of the tenant, RoboVent, Ryan here can give you a quick little update.
Thank you, Conrad. This is Ryan McWilliams. I am the Director of Operations at RoboVent Solutions Group. We are, just to give you some background, we were formed in 1989 out of Clawson, Michigan. Family-owned business that had some good ideas on industrial ventilation, which we have continued since 1989. We moved to where we are currently on Mound Road in 2001, and we've just outgrown that facility as we continue to move into different markets, not only in North America, but with our corporate Netterman, which is out of Helsingborg, Sweden, that is opening the door to moving globally into Europe down the road. So it would all be manufactured here and assembled in Chesterfield, Michigan, and then distributed globally. The way we're looking to grow further is our bread and butter has historically been in welding operations. A lot of automotive, and we're not in the big three, but in the tier 1 suppliers. But in order to continue to grow, that market is large, but we want to get into food grade and pharmaceuticals, in which we have been doing over the last 3 years. It's been a push. In the last 2 years, we've been landing food companies like Ornua. They're a cheese factory, or they produce cheese out of Wisconsin. We've also got into Indiana Sugar, a sugar company obviously out of Indiana. And we're still targeting the pharmaceuticals. We have some leads there as well. But that's how we look to push and continue to grow as we expand our business as we move to Chesterfield. We also are increasing our minimum wage for our hourly to $21 an hour. That's looking at the skill level that we need to retain people and to bring in quality workers. So we are not, looking for the lowest level or the lowest rate. We look to take care of our employees because we're looking for retention. We put a lot of money and training into them, and we want to make sure they're taken care of financially, as well as staying with the company so we can continue to grow. We are very excited about this opportunity to move here, and this tax abatement would be a huge help in our plans to grow further. We have, part of our business is also filter manufacturing. We make our own filters for our dust collectors that we manufacture. And we have a need we need space basically to buy a core machine so we can make the internal metal core that the filters go around. Currently we outsource that to a competitor. And we need the space as well as the financials that will come from the tax abatement to be able to purchase that funds in the next 2 to 5 years. It's going to be, we're pushing them, to be closer to 2 years. The other is a larger pleater line. So a pleater is how you make a filter. You pleat the media. It's called filter media. It's like a paper. And currently, right now, our operation, we use a 52-inch filter. How we do that on our shorter pleater line is we have to make 2, and we glue them together to make the 52-inch. We make 2 26 inches filters to make 52. That's very inefficient for us, but it works in the space we have. So again, with this tax abatement money, that would help us fund a pleater line, which is around a $500,000 investment. The core machine is $300,000 to $400,000 in investment as well. That's all I have at this time. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, sir. Carrie, if you wouldn't mind explaining the process and the scoring that's done internally.
Good evening. So RoboVent applied, they submitted for 2 IFEC applications for the same building located on Sierra Drive at 52029. One is a speculative IFEC, that is for the shell building portion. That's half of the building that they're occupying. The total building is 179,200 square feet. They're occupying the north part, approximately 89,000 square feet. They are also applying for a new IFEC application. That is for the tenant build-out portion. So for a combined total real property investment of $9.8 million. The applicant is requesting a 50% tax abatement, which is half of the tax rate associated with the ad valorem assessment over a 12-year period, which is the maximum years allowable by the State Tax Commission. However, the recommended abatement criteria that was adopted by the board is for 10 years. That is based on the type of use of the building, which is manufacturing, that's 2 years. The investment of real property, 9.8, which is 5 years, and the total number of new employees, 26 to 100. Under 100 is 3 years. That's a cumulative of 10 years. If the board has any other questions,
Trustee Joseph.
Thank you. Carrie, I noticed in the memo that the current full-time employees are 75, and they anticipate creating 11 additional. If I heard the presenter right, you're currently headquartered in a Mound Road facility. Will they be bringing the entirety of the workforce to the Chesterfield location? Yes, we will. Thank you. And Carrie, if you could, sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot. I know you don't have a microphone. I just wanted to make sure. Carrie, Ms. Bouvet, the typical abatement for the township is a 10-year, and I was a bit confused. Was that based on the scoring? Is that what you said?
that is correct.
And so as you score this out, this qualifies for a 10-year abatement. The request is for 12 because that's the state allowable
The
limit.
maximum for the state allowable is 12 years.
Okay.
However, the criteria that the board adopted is recommended 10 years.
Very good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Carrie. Any further questions? Any further questions? We'll open it up to the public. If there are any questions from the public, there is a 3-minute time limit. I would ask that if you do have questions, ask the chair, and we'll see if we can respond to them when the
Janice Young. I just want to say I think it's pretty interesting that they got to do their presentation tonight before we got to make comments, when on the November 28th meeting, when it came to the 2024 budget, we were forced to give our comments before the presentation. Thank you.
Any further public comments? Any further public comments? Make a motion to close the public hearing at 7:34. Is there support?
Support.
I didn't hear. Trustee Bosworth, was that you? Was it Trustee Joseph?
There were 3 of us, yeah.
I'm sorry. Clerk Bear.
Supervisor Kersten.
Aye.
Who do you have for second? Joseph. Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Demink.
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Clerk Berry, aye.
Public hearing is closed. Public hearing is closed on 9A. We will move to 9B.
Item 9B is to conduct a public hearing on December 19th, 2023, to hear comments on an application for an industrial facilities exemption certificate submitted by RoboVent for tenant build-out portion of the building located at 52029 Sierra Drive, Chesterfield Township, Michigan, 48047.
So moved.
Trustee Demink, make a motion to open the public hearing. Is there support?
Second.
Trustee Vosberg. At 8:35.
7:35, sir.
7:35, I'm sorry, 7:35. Clerk Berry.
Trustee Demink.
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Supervisor Kersten.
Aye.
Clerk Berry, aye.
Public hearing is open. The applicant is here. Would you like to address again? If you wouldn't mind, would you explain the differences for the two?
Sure, Conrad Shuey with BKG Dominion. Yeah, so the reason there's two, so when there's a speculative building, we obviously build it with no tenant there. That's the nature of it, it's speculative. And so when you apply for the tax abatement, it actually then requires two separate applications. There's one for the shell building, as it's called, which in this case, 50% of it, winds up being about $6.4 million or whatever that number was. $6,485,000. And so that's for half of the building that's there, 49.86% of the investment in that building. And that doesn't include land and paying architects and permit fees and stuff like that. Then the second application is for the tenant build-out portion. So that's their office space, that's making accommodations for their equipment, all the electrical, the cranes, things of that nature. So that's why with a speculative building, when you do get a tenant, there's two applications that are submitted versus if we had built this as a build-to-suit, we would come to you with one application. It would include both the shell building and the internal build-out. So that's sort of the nuance of the reason there's two applications. So on the scoring, again, we're not privy to exactly what was in there, but, and it may, I don't know precisely the answer on this, but the investment in personal property, I don't know if I heard that was accounted for. There's about $1,350,000 in personal property. I know there's a thing where personal property is no longer taxed in Michigan, but I thought for the application, the intent was just to understand how much personal property the tenant was buying. So there was a budget submitted for that, which again was about $1,350,000. So that was where, when we internally scored it, we came up with the 12 years, which was why we made the request for the 12 years, which included that, the two years for the personal property. So just to raise that, point at this time. So if you have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, I'll take a seat.
Carrie, is there anything you'd like to address?
I just wanted to address the personal property issue, that, again, no personal property shall be issued an abatement certificate for any personal property that qualifies for eligible manufacturing personal property. That started in 2021. The claimant will instead file a personal property with the State Essential Services Division. So that's why we don't include the personal property. The township itself does not get funds from their personal property. I understand they're having an investment of bringing that personal property here, but the township does not receive those tax dollars for personal property.
Thank you. Questions from the board? Trustee Joseph.
Ms. Bouvet, just to be clear, the personal property portion of the abatement, if I understood the presentation, they included that for the scoring purposes, and your position is that is really not a proper scoring, in that township, that's not part of the abatement to begin with. Am I getting that right, or am I off?
On their what they provided showed their investment for the future, for 1 year to 2 to 5 years. That's their investment that they're going to bring to the township.
Sure.
But we do not include that in our criteria because we don't get the personal property. So they're separate.
Very good. Thank you.
Any further questions from the board? Questions from the public?
John Speaka, Chesterfield Township. I am glad to see a company like RoboVent come in Chesterfield. It's always good to see a company like that come in and make Chesterfield their home. I would like to see more than 11 employees, though, hired from Chesterfield. And since it looks like the board, and I agree with the board with giving you the tax abatement, $21 is a fair wage, but I was thinking more along like $25 and $26. I think would be a better wage, but I'm glad to see you guys coming to Chesterfield, and welcome aboard, and thank you.
Any further comments from the public? Sir, if you want to address, you can.
Lindy Lewis with RoboVent. I'm the EHS manager for them. I wanted to address the 11 employees that we're looking at. Economy is really finicky sometimes. That's the risk assessment that we did for right now. We brought up the filters that we get from a competitor right now. We want to try and bring it in-house into Michigan. So right now, the competitor's out of Ohio. We're trying to bring it in-house, and at that point, we would be able to employ more people, and that's what we're working towards, to try and get the abatement so that we can get the equipment and bring in, so that we can bring more in-house. So I did want to address that with you. I know 11 seems like very little for right now, but it is for right now. We're growing very fast. I mean, within the 4 years that I've been there, it's expanded huge. We're like my colleague Ryan said, that we are going global, and we are going to be producing here, and we want to do more here. So we appreciate you giving us a chance to show that we are going to step up for the Chesterfield community. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any further comments from the public? I'll entertain Trustee Joseph.
Just a quick point. The 11 employees is in addition to the existing 75. You're talking about 86 employees that aren't working in Chesterfield, that aren't buying their lunches from local diners, that aren't grocery shopping in our stores, coming to Chesterfield. So it's 86, not 11. It's 11 additional in terms of what you're bringing. Correct? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any further comments from the public? Pardon me? Please, you may. Yes, please, if you would.
So in any business, whenever you do move, you do see that there are probably going to be some people that won't make the move with you because it's either out of their area and stuff. So we are conservative with 11. We do, like I said before, we are looking to do more, but there's going to be more business that we're going to be doing in Chesterfield with our employees. A lot of our employees have already came over, seen what's around the companies and businesses that are here. They have more opportunity to go to areas to actually use the local businesses that they're doing. So I just wanted to make sure that you understood a little bit more that we are working at.
Thank you, sir. Any further comments from the public? Any further comments from the public?
I just got a question as to, what's this worth to this company? How much are we talking about tax rate? Nobody said anything that as to what they're going to get in return. Does anybody have that number, or don't we consider that?
Yes, sir. We'll give you that answer at the end of the meeting.
Mr. Supervisor?
You already got
this number. If I understood the question right, this number is in our packet.
It is.
Mr. Bouvet could easily give that.
Yeah, it was available to him. It's in the packet.
Could we just put it on? Could we just put it on record? It's very simple.
Carrie,
it's very easy. It was provided to the board. It's part of the agenda packet.
Terry, if you wouldn't mind addressing this.
So the tax savings is what you're saying is what the ad valorem rate is 54 mils, divided by half is 27 mils, plus the state education tax is another 3 mils. So we come out with the abatement, this tax savings for the township. We have the difference between the 10 and 12, well, we have the $21,500 per year, is the difference. I'm not sure exactly what you were asking on.
Mr.
what's their-
Supervisor, if I could.
The township?
Yeah. Good.
Trustee Joseph?
Yeah, thank you. In your memo to the
Yes.
board, you
For 10.
indicate that without the IFT on a 10-year abatement, the taxes for Chesterfield would be $429,946. With the abatement, that would be a difference of $214,000.
That is correct.
And rounding up, you would be at $21,500 per year. To answer Mr. Kadich's question, that is what's in it
For the record, yes.
correct?
That is correct.
And then on the 12-year, the breakdown is very similar. It just proportionally goes up incrementally over the 2 years. And then that dollar amount would be $257,000 and some change for the 12-year period, or $25,800 per year in taxes.
It's for the difference, yes.
Great, hope that answers it. It's split. If I understand it, Ms. Bouvet, it's a 50% abatement. And so the 25,000 per year would be the amount of savings on a 12-year rate, and the 21,500 would be the average yearly rate for a 10-year abatement. Ballpark, just
Correct.
rounding up.
Okay.
Yes? Thank you, Ms. Bouvet.
Page 75 of the agenda, those numbers are in the agenda packet, so. Any further comments from the public? Trustee Vosberg.
Carrie, if you could just clarify that 21,500 per year, is that just, could you just the township portion?
That is
or-
just the township.
Right, so other taxing authorities, other than the state education, would also be receiving half?
That is correct.
If this is
It's
approved.
50%.
Right, thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions from the board?
Mr. Supervisor, I'd like to make a motion to close the public hearing.
Motion by Clerk Berry, supported by?
Support.
Trustee Joseph? Clerk Berry?
Clerk Berry, aye. Trustee Joseph?
Aye.
Trustee Anderson?
Aye.
Trustee Demink?
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg? Supervisor Kersten?
Aye. Public hearing closed at 7:47. We'll move on to the regular agenda, item 10. When you're ready, Clerk Berry.
Item 10A is to consider an application for an industrial facilities exemption certificate submitted by RoboVent Solutions, Inc. for the speculative building located at 52029 Sierra Drive, Chesterfield Township, Michigan, 48047, and the approval of the attached abatement agreement, and to adopt resolution number 2023-40.
Mr. Supervisor, I'd like to make a motion to approve the application as stated by the clerk for a 10-year period.
Support.
Motion by Trustee Joseph, supported by Trustee Vosberg for a 10-year abatement. Comments from the board? Comments from the board? Seeing no comments from the board, Clerk Berry?
Trustee Joseph?
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg? Trustee Anderson?
Aye.
Trustee Demink?
Aye.
Supervisor Kersten?
Aye.
Clerk Berry, aye.
Item 10B.
Item 10B is consideration of an application for an industrial facilities exemption certificate submitted by RoboVent Solutions, Inc. for the tenant build-out portion of the building located at 52029 Sierra Drive, Chesterfield Township, Michigan, 48047, and the approval of attached abatement agreement, and to adopt resolution number 2023-41.
Mr. Supervisor, I'd like to make a motion to approve the application for abatement for a 10-year period.
Supported by Supervisor Kersten. Discussion from the board? Trustee Vosberg?
I do have one question. Actually, I should have asked it before. The resolution that's part of this packet, does it state the number of years in there, or will it state?
It will.
It will. Okay, thank you.
It'll be completed upon approval of the board.
Mr. Supervisor?
Trustee Joseph?
It's just currently left blank right now, correct?
That's correct.
And it's
That's
just
correct.
really a fill in the blank.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
No further discussion from the board. Clerk Berry?
Trustee Joseph?
Aye.
Supervisor Kersten?
Aye.
Trustee Anderson?
Aye.
Trustee Demink?
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg?
Aye.
Clerk Barry, aye.
Thank you, gentlemen. Item 10C.
Item 10C is to approve resolution number 2023-36, revised poverty exemption policy and guidelines dated December 12, 2023, for use in compliance with Public Act 390 of 1994, Public Act 253 of 2020 as amended, Public Act 141 of 2022, and Public Act 191 of 2023, and authorize the Board of Review on the Township Board's behalf to annually update and revise the household income amounts as stated in Section 2 of the income guidelines.
Supervisor Kersten will make a motion to approve.
Second.
Is there any, Clerk Barry? Ms. Bavay, do you want to address this again? Or address this originally?
Thank you. This is a change. Public Act 191 of 2023 allows local units to grant a 75% partial exemption in addition to the previously allowed 100%, 50%, and 25% reduction without prior approval from the state of Michigan. Therefore, anytime we change our guidelines, it's to be brought to the board. I am also asking for the board to allow us to annually update and revise our household income amounts as stated in Section 2 of the income guidelines to adopt the federal poverty guidelines. So each year, those would be published in December, and we would annually update that, not having to bring it to the board each year, but because we're changing the guidelines to add that 75%, we are bringing it in at this time.
And as you previously described, this comes in front of the tax tribunal here at the township, right? Board of Review,
It comes to the board of review.
all
and
these applications.
Yes. Right now, it's adding 75%, which we didn't have previously.
Thank you.
Once the board adopts this, then it would be published on our website and available to the public.
Thank you. Questions from the board? Questions from the board? I have a motion by Supervisor Kersten, supported by Clerk Barry. Clerk Barry.
Supervisor Kersten?
Aye.
Clerk Barry, aye. Trustee Anderson?
Aye.
Trustee Joseph?
Aye.
Trustee Demink?
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg?
Aye.
Thank you, Carrie. Item 10D.
Item 10D is a recommendation by Supervisor Kersten to appoint Daniel Hickey as an alternate to the Board of Review with a term of December 19th, 2023 through December 31st, 2024.
Supervisor Kersten will make a motion to approve the appointment. Is there support?
Support.
Trustee Demink. Discussion from the board? No discussion? I have a motion by Supervisor Kersten, supported by Trustee Demink, to approve item 10D. Clerk Barry.
Supervisor Kersten.
Aye.
Trustee Demink. Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph. Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Clerk Barry, aye.
Item 10E.
Item 10E is a recommendation to enter into a one-year contract from January 1st, 2024 through December 31st, 2024 with Mad Habit Creative LLC for the production of bi-monthly board meetings and one township video at $7,800.
Supervisor Kersten will again make a motion to approve. Is there support? Any support?
I'll support.
Trustee Vosberg. Karen, you want to address this?
So we are, Mad Habit Creative is, runs our board meetings and records them for us. They've been our vendor for about 2 years now. Their contract is the same, their price is not increasing. However, we did take off, they were doing monthly hours with us, and we did take that off of this year's contract. So the contract did go down a little bit in reference to the years past.
Thank you. Questions from the board? Trustee Anderson.
Yeah, that figure, that is static irregardless of the length of the board meetings?
Oh,
No, it's per hour.
Thank you.
So the first 2 hours are 80 and then additional hours.
Trustee Joseph?
Yeah, just some questions on the language. Bi-monthly board meetings and one township video. You're talking about our meeting schedule. It's not quite bi-weekly because sometimes we have 3 weeks in between meetings, but bi-monthly is every 2 months, right? I mean,
I'm not laughing at you. I'm not.
Okay.
We had this discussion prior to, for clarity. so-
Bi-weekly would be every other week, but we don't do bi-weekly because we have sometimes 5 Tuesdays, so I don't know if it's semi-monthly or what the terminology is, but 2 board meetings per month, so, okay, all right.
Trustee Vosberg?
So back when I was in school, which is a while ago, it meant every other month, but I checked the dictionary here after and it does now mean, it means both, so either every other month or twice a month. But the intent here is twice a month, correct?
Any further questions? Comments for the board? I have a motion by Supervisor Kersten, supported by Trustee Vosberg. Clerk Barry.
Supervisor Kersten.
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Demink.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Clerk Barry, aye.
Thank you, Karen. Item 10F.
Item 10F is to approve the request by the Treasurer's Office to adopt Resolution 2023-37 to collect 50% of the Anchor Bay School District 2024 tax levy in the summer.
So moved.
Trustee
Support.
Demink, supported by Clerk Barry. Crystal, you want any comments on this? And you might as well cover the next 3.
This is an annual presentation to the board to allow for the summer tax collection for the school districts. So the next 5 are all part of the same circumstances.
Thank you. Any questions from the board? Any questions from the board? Clerk Barry.
Trustee Demink.
Aye.
Clerk Barry, aye. Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Supervisor Kersten.
Aye. Item 10G.
Item 10G is to approve the request by the Treasurer's Office to adopt Resolution 2023-38 to collect 100% of Lance Cruz School District 2024 tax levy in the summer.
Motion by Supervisor Kersten.
Support.
Trustee Vosberg. Any discussion? Clerk Barry.
Supervisor Kersten.
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Trustee Demink.
Aye.
Clerk Barry, aye.
Item 10H.
Item 10H is to approve the request by the Treasurer's Office to adopt Resolution 2023-39 to collect 50% of the New Haven School District 2024 tax levy in the summer.
So moved.
Trustee Demink, supported by Supervisor Kersten. Discussion? Seeing none, Clerk Barry.
Trustee Demink. Supervisor Kersten.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Clerk Barry, aye.
Item 10I, when you're ready.
Item 10I is to approve the request by the Treasurer's Office to adopt Resolution 2023-42 to collect 100% of the Macomb Intermediate School District 2024 tax levy in the summer.
Move to approve.
Trustee Vosberg.
Second.
Clerk Barry. Discussion? Clerk Barry.
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Clerk Barry, aye. Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Demink.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Supervisor Kersten.
Aye. Item 10J.
Item 10J is to approve the request by the Treasurer's Office to adopt Resolution 2023-43 to collect 100% of the Macomb County Community College 2024 tax levy in the summer.
Motion by Supervisor Kersten,
Second.
supported by Trustee Demink. Discussion? Clerk Barry.
Supervisor Kersten.
Aye.
Trustee Demink.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg. Clerk Barry, aye.
Item 10K.
Item 10K is to approve a recommendation by Finance to make the final budget amendments for the 2023 budget.
Supervisor Kersten will make a motion to approve.
Support.
Trustee Vosberg, support. Ms. Bauer, the floor is yours.
Before you is the 2023 December budget amendments. This is done annually. There are 3 funds being amended. The first is general fund with a net amendment request of $274,823.47. This includes an increase in interest income of $394,500. There are 6 additional departments being amended, and high-level detail listing has been provided. Next is the capital project fund with an amendment of $4,155,372. This is just moving the projected cost from the 2024 budget to the 2023 budget. And lastly is the public safety fund. This is to record the last principal and interest payment for the fire building in Department 336. In previous years, it was recorded in Department 340 fire equipment. The 340 department has been closed into the 336 department in 2023.
Thank you, Vicki. Discussion from board, comments from board? Comments from the board? A motion by Supervisor Kersten, supported by Trustee Vosberg, to approve item 10K. Clerk Berry.
Supervisor Kersten.
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Trustee Demink.
Aye.
Clerk Berry, aye.
Item 10L.
Item 10L is to approve a recommendation by Public Services to award engineering design services to AEW for the Chesterfield Interceptor Rehabilitation Phase 2 project in the amount of $171,000.
Supervisor Kersten will make a motion to approve. Is there support?
Support.
Trustee Vosberg. Mr. O'Connor?
Good evening. This is Phase 2 of the rehabilitation of the Chesterfield Interceptor. Phase 1 was done this summer of 2023, last summer, this summer. That project was budgeted at $600,000. The final cost was about $450,000. This project is a little bit bigger. It's budgeted at $5 million, and it's being funded by an earmark. This is to award the design phase of the project to AEW to get the project bidding documents prepared. Once the bids are received, we'll be back in front of the board to, recommend a awarded contract and a total project cost.
Questions from the board? Mitch, we're following along the rehabilitation schedule that the engineers had prepared and presented prior to, correct?
Yeah,
And
yes.
phase construction improvement of it?
Yes. Fishbeck re-TV'd and re-rated the sewers about a year ago, and this is the recommended Phase 2 of that.
And we're on schedule with following that
Yes, we are.
construction timeline? Thank you.
Yes.
Trustee Anderson?
Just have a statement, or not a question?
Pardon me? Yes.
Yeah, just a real quick history here. During the previous board, the county commissioner came to the board, offered this piece of property to the township, which the county was going to own until 2026. There was a price of $1.7 or $1.9 million worth of repairs. It was then called the North Interceptor, if I believe. And the existing board at that time unanimously voted not to accept it. County came back during the life of this board, again made the offer of this piece of property, now rebranded the Chesterfield Interceptor with a price tag of $11 million repairs on it, and this existing board by a simple majority accepted it. Just letting you know ahead of time, I can't support it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any further comments? I have a motion by Supervisor Kersten, supported by Trustee Vosberg. Clerk Berry.
Supervisor Kersten.
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Trustee Demink.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Nope.
Trustee Joseph.
No.
Clerk Berry, aye.
Item 10M.
Item 10M is to approve a recommendation for the Department of Public Services to enter into a 60-month lease agreement with Enterprise Fleet Management to lease 2 vehicles, one Ford Transit van all-wheel drive and one F-150 XL Super Crew Cab for a lease total of $23,633.88 per year.
Supervisor Kersten again will make a motion to approve. Is there support?
Second.
Clerk Berry? Josh? Mr.
Yes,
Sonnenberg, sorry.
Oh, sorry. Yes, good evening. This is part of our 2024 fleet plan. As you can see in your packet, it's pretty detailed. It spells out in detail the vehicle specs, what vehicles we're looking at. For 2024, we plan to lease 2 vehicles and, the 2024 capital plan in your package outlines leasing 3 vehicles and purchasing 3 vehicles. Today's request is to lease 2 of the 3 budgeted vehicles. You'll see in your plan, there is a snapshot of our capital plan that was proposed and approved, and then also you can see the lease summary breakdown. Also in your packet, you'll notice that there is the total capitalized price for each vehicle. The XL 4x4 Super Crew cab, total delivered price is $45,629. And the Ford Transit cargo van is $56,576. We do plan, just so everyone's aware, these are 5-year leases, but with the enterprise model, we usually typically only keep a vehicle between 2 to 3 years is the sweet spot, and then we turn them in and get new vehicles. Any questions?
Thank you. Questions? Trustee Joseph?
Can you explain the benefit of the 60-month lease, and then, just in the lease summary, you exceed the purchase price of the vehicle in the lease payment, so you pay for the entire vehicle, then you give it back as an asset. So it has value. You have a 5-year-old vehicle with mileage restrictions, and what's the advantage of purchasing, leasing in greater proportion than the purchase price?
Well, we are finding, as you know, last year we partnered with Enterprise, and our idea was partnering with one of the industry leaders was to kind of use their example to see how they function and take a lot of that information. You will find that 2024 we're sticking to our plan, but moving forward in 25 we're going to do more of a blend. Some purchase, some lease. Because what we find is on our vehicles, like for building department, that we can find that are less expensive, like some of the Ford Transit vehicles or Ford Focus, let's say. We can find those on a cheaper lease. Makes sense to lease those, hold them for 2 to 3 years. But on our sewer and water trucks and vehicles, sometimes at this point in the market, they're pointing out that it makes sense. There is a cost to the township if we were to hold those for the whole term of the lease, but the idea is to turn those back in 1 to 2 years, 3 at the most, and then really analyze it. Now, what I can tell you, the risk here we have is with Enterprise, we've brought in a lot of leased vehicles, but we haven't turned them on the other side. The goal with the Enterprise model is that they claim through their research and development that when you go to turn these vehicles in, we buy them at a lower purchase price, so when we go to flip them into the market, there's some equity there for us, and that's the positive side on our end. But to your point, we haven't flipped several vehicles with Enterprise to find that sweet spot.
Just a quick follow-up, Mr. Supervisor, if I may.
Yes, Trustee Joseph.
Thank you. I remember the presentation, and I like the idea for high mileage, vehicles, and we were churning out a lot of miles on these vehicles. For vehicles that are not requiring, like, the duty associated with a truck, maybe the purchase, whatever a Ford Focus would be used for, right? Why couldn't we use vehicles, we typically take public safety vehicles, police cars, we get pennies at the auction. Those vehicles are not really safe for a high-speed chase, but they certainly could navigate the township in the same way a Ford Focus would. Are we incorporating that philosophy with existing assets? Obviously, we can't really, it's tough to lease, when you're putting 100,000 miles on the vehicle. So We're buying them, we're not really getting much back, at auction. And then secondly, I recall the enterprise presentation, and I like the idea, and that whole sweet spot concept was something we spent a lot of time on. But I was under the impression that those were 2 to 3 year leases and not a 6-year lease. So when we lock in for 60 months, it's a little bit different than, if they've identified the sweet spot at the 2 to 3 year mark, then why doesn't the lease reflect our investment? We're buying, we're intentionally not buying the whole pie because we're just planning a couple of slices. But here, we're leasing the whole pie, buying the whole pie, and then giving them back. And it just, I'm not connecting to the 60-month term as opposed to a 24, 36-month term.
Both great. You're welcome. Both great questions, and I'll try to address them. The first one, in regards to public safety vehicles, we found that it would be a great concept. The problem we have is what we're trying to get away from in our group is you'll see Enterprise, they push the biggest savings of their model is less repair and maintenance. So to your point, when those police cars get to that point where there's starting to be, upcoming repairs and maintenance, and your public safety team really does a great job managing their fleet, so we kind of look to them, and they're selling those vehicles for a reason. Things are starting to break down, there's some repairs outstanding that are coming up, so they like to sell those vehicles before that happens, and then we don't want to take them into our fleet. So we wanted to look at getting new vehicles. Now, to your point about the extended lease, I agree. It wouldn't make sense to lease these vehicles to hold them for 60 months. The nice part about their leasing structure is if you get into a situation where you need to hold the vehicle longer, they're not here to pick it up, or you're not paying penalties in that 2 to 3 year window. You have the option of the 60 months. We do not plan on using the 60 months, and I do think to expand on that, we plan on bringing Enterprise back in beginning of next year to kind of do a fleet presentation and kind of an overview for the board to kind of show where we are at and where we plan to go. We're kind of locked into the 24 plan, and we feel comfortable with it because we're not getting many vehicles, but moving into 25, we think we're going to make a couple of adjustments.
Thank you.
You're welcome, sir.
Trustee Vosser.
Thank you. Question to Josh. So even though this says a 60-month, if I understood what you just said, just want to re-explain it if you would. We can stop the lease after 2 or 3 years.
Correct.
Under this, all right?
Correct.
And then my other question is about the mileage. The one I'm looking at says based on annual mileage of 5,000. Are we held to that?
No, Enterprise is kind of it's a unusual municipal leasing structure. It's kind of open. We don't get penalty. We don't really pay a penalty for miles. And the end of the lease, like having that flexibility, unlike a personal lease, you don't get that sign up for 2 years, but then get, flex to 60. So there is an advantage to a municipal leasing program. That's kind of where Enterprise's sweet spot is for us.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? I have a motion by Supervisor Kersten, supported by Clerk Berry, to approve item 10M. Clerk Berry.
Supervisor Kersten.
Aye.
Clerk Berry, aye. Trustee Anderson.
No.
Trustee Joseph.
No.
Trustee DeMink.
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Item 10N.
Item 10N is to approve a recommendation to construct a partition within the community center to provide designated space for the clerks and elections functions in an amount not to exceed $9,306 to be able to securely conduct early voting.
Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Clerk Berry, is there support?
So to give everybody a quick overview, this was brought to us as a need by the clerk's department during next year's voting cycle to occupy a secured portion in our...
Josh, hold up. Is there...
Sorry, do we need a second on the motion before we start?
I'm sorry.
Is there support for Clerk Berry's motion to approve? Supervisor Kersten will make a motion to approve. Second, I'm sorry.
Thank you. Josh, do you want me to go ahead and talk about
Sure.
first why we're doing
Sorry.
this? And you can...
Sorry about that. Go right ahead.
Okay, so the reason for this ask is that the Election Commission directed that our early voting location will be this facility. In order for us to conduct the operations that we need to conduct to facilitate early voting, we need to utilize several rooms in this building. One of which, we looked at several options. We conferred also with our Parks and Rec director because there is currently ongoing programming that's occurring here. So we're having to share space together. And so after several meetings with facilities and the Parks and Rec team, we came up with a shared space plan that you're being shown here today. This plan enables us to conduct and to satisfy all the security requirements that we need and the operational needs we have to conduct early voting in accordance with the Election Commission's directive, as well as to have the least impact on the programming that's currently scheduled for our Parks and Recreation Department. So it's been kind of a back and forth, and we finally got to a point, and what we decided was that, and this was the best solution that we came up with collaboratively together that would satisfy everyone's need for using the shared space. There is a media room in this building that we can take a section of. It allows us to have it satisfies all of the basic requirements that we are mandated to comply with for the Bureau of Elections, as well as to give the Parks and Rec Department the flexibility that they need to continue to conduct the majority of their programming uninterrupted. So instead of using several of their classrooms, which would take up more programming and impact more programming, and it would also force us to have to close off certain corridors, hallways, it would be very cumbersome. This will be the easiest way for voters to enter into that main area there that you see if you were looking straight in, that all that area there that's kind of the reception area would be open and shared space, and then over to the right where you kind of see those pillars or pylons there, it would be on the other side of that, and that's where we would construct that partition. It's not a permanent structure, Josh will tell you. It goes up very quickly, and it would come down as well after we are done with it. We will be using that space for the duration of the 2024 election cycle. So from January all the way through November is where we will be utilizing this space. The things that are going to be housed there are going to be all of the operations for our absentee ballot processing, as well as all of our early voting materials, equipment, personnel, that will all be located there. This will, by having everything in one place at one time, it allows us to minimize any impact on chains of custody for the equipment as well as the material, which satisfies our need. It also allows us to secure that area, again, according to the mandates of the Bureau of Elections. So, for example, I can't take election equipment, put it into a classroom that custodians and everybody else has a key to. We can't do that because you have to secure the integrity of that equipment. So by essentially building out this space the way that Josh has presented, and I'll let him speak more to it, this allows us to maintain that security. So that was very, very important and paramount, as well as to use some of the space during the early voting period where we can put queues in, line queues for line management. But when we don't have early voting going on, that's all available for Parks and Rec. So it's more of just segmenting an area and designating an area, again, to satisfy all the mandates that we have been given by the Election Commission and the Bureau of Elections, and also have the least amount of impact on the programming of Parks and Recreation.
Anything to Josh?
Yeah, I'll just add to the construction. We tried to find an area in the building. You can see the school is the overall picture. You'll see that the turquoise or bluish color, that's the color that we currently occupy. The red square is the square that, in reference to Clerk Barry's area. We tried to find the simplest area where we could build just the minimal amount of walls. Also, that area is heavy on electrical all the way around. There was a student teaching lab in there, so plenty of electrical, plenty of places to plug in. We don't have minimal expenses. We looked at a vinyl board product instead of drywall. so we wouldn't have to finish it, but that was actually way more expensive, so we went back to just a simple drywall wall, metal studs, fairly as simple as we could do it, but also provide the security they were looking for.
Thanks, sir.
You're welcome.
Comments from the board? Trustee Joseph.
Yeah, just a quick question, Josh. Clerk used the word, it's temporary, but the wall behind you, you can fold it in and out. When you put up drywall, it's coming down. You're not reusing drywall, so it's a permanent wall that can be, I guess, fairly simply taken down, but there's nothing reusable in this wall, right?
You are correct. I mean, by the time you put the drywall up and drywall down, it's just the most economical for us when you look at like temporary wall partitions or office dividers. Metal studs and drywall, because it goes up so fast.
Sure.
In the construction, you'll call it a temporary wall, but it's drywall both sides and painted. So you're right, to your point, it looks like any other residential wall.
The investment perhaps in a partition type wall?
What's that, Ron?
Was that ever considered? And I realize the cost would be greater, but there's a reuse factor. I mean, we anticipate having more elections, in future years, and I'm just wondering if there's a more usable solution.
It's a great question. The problem with it is when you look at office panels, like your regular office dividers, they're kind of set up in fixed panels unless you lap them. And because the way that wall's set up, honestly, the scalability of the metal studs, when you put it up and cut drywall, we looked at 3 different options. One of them was the office partitions, and it was so timely and expensive that we didn't even put it in the package. The 2 numbers you see, the lesser number that you see today, the more expensive number was an easier product. It was a vinyl board, finished drywall, has vinyl wrapped around it, you just kind of stick it up. But the cost of that material was so much more, it drove almost double the cost going back to the drywall and metal studs.
Sorry, just when I said the wall behind you, I meant like that wall.
Yeah.
So those panels are on a track. They're made for this room, obviously, but is there something similar to that, or does the span just not really lend itself to that type of application?
Great question. That's all called a mono wall. It hangs from a structure. It almost hangs from a track above, and the weight, and it's made and measured to fit this exact size. So there is other possibilities, but I can tell you the cheapest, fastest way to get these walls up, fastest way is drywall and studs. But to your point, that it will be, when we're done, if we don't find another use for that room, those walls will be removed.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions from the board?
Down here.
Trustee Ewing.
Just real quick, Josh, let's say we put something like that up, what does that run? You got
Well,
any ideas? I mean, just give, ballpark.
I can't even, because it's held from a truss from the ceiling. It's a totally different operation. You couldn't just set that in place. There's track that would have to be nailed up, and the panels have to be pre-made. But that finish that you're looking at, that vinyl board finish, they make drywall that's wrapped with that same product. You just stick it to the wall. The problem with that drywall, it was 3 times the amount per sheet as regular drywall.
So this stuff would be-
it was still cheaper for us to just tape it and paint it.
Okay, all right, thanks for your information.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Any further comments? Any further comments? Trustee Vosburgh.
Thank you. I guess when I'm part of the election commission, we approved use of that building for the early voting. And at the time, I think we were hoping we'd already be in the building, and we're not. So that's part of the issue why we have to come up with something temporary, right? Is the intent right now to just leave that structure in place until something else might be needed? Or, I know it was mentioned tonight that if Parks and Rec needed it for their facilities, for their use, what is the intended?
Yeah, so when we were going over this with Michelle Vannerson, one of the things she said is that when we left there after this 10-month stretch or whatever, she said, you know what, I really like that. We could actually utilize that for a couple of other things. So she actually liked the plan, and she was a big part of how we did this. In fact, we said, we want it to kind of go this far, and then she actually said, could you go one more? You may as well go one more, because then for her uses, it worked. So it was truly a collaborative effort, even as far as large as the space was going to be. It's actually a bit bigger than we originally needed, but Michelle suggested that we make it a little bit bigger because she did plan to use it after we left.
Okay, so for right now, when I say right now, for the near future, 2, 3, 4 years, it appears we would just leave that structure up there?
If she plans to use it after that, our intention, we've had discussions with Supervisor Kersten about it. For us, the Election Commission has only approved this for the 2024 election cycle, as you know. Hopefully, we may be able to do something at this location or another location for early voting in the future. If we do continue to do early voting in this location in the future, we could certainly utilize it. But after the November of 2024, you know, if we have another home to go, so to speak, then they can do whatever that makes sense for them.
Okay, so one last thing, Mr. Supervisor, then. So whether this is used for voting or not, and whether we own the building or we continue leasing, it sounds like those walls will stay up for a while.
Yes, that would be the plan, and again, that's going into a different direction. If we take possession of the building, we will utilize that space in some capacity.
Yeah, all right, thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? Trustee Joseph?
Yeah, Mr. Supervisor, just one last question for you or Josh. I'm not in that building a ton, and I'm trying to recall entry points into that room, egress and things. Do we have any issues with public safety as we have a fire inspector look at that in terms of, you know, that's a like roughly 60-foot wall that sections that in half. We got feedback from the fire department on egress and things like that for both halves once the divider is created?
Great question. Yeah, actually, one of the reasons why this particular area was picked is because, as you know, there's summer camp in the building. So we kind of laid out summer camp to make sure that it wouldn't impact when the kids are in the building in the summer. And you really can't see, I apologize. Next time I'll keep this in mind to bring a bigger picture. But if you zoomed in on that, there's actually 4 doors that let you out of that space. There's 2 on the right side wall, 1 on the top, or I'm sorry, 1 on the right side wall, 1 on the top, and 2 on the left that exit you out of that space.
Sorry, is that something the fire department's reviewed?
That's something that is approved based on square footage, the amount of doors for egress, yes.
They look at it or they don't need to look at it? You're saying based on doors per square footage, they
Yes.
don't need to look at it?
Well, yeah, I mean, we could have them look at it, but based on the number of doors per square foot, it qualifies.
Just a quick input, our fire inspectors wouldn't have jurisdiction in that building. That's done by the state fire marshal, and the school would oversee that, and they're very comfortable with our lease and the use of it, so.
And they've looked at this, like, we don't have any,
I didn't say they did, I was clarifying with you who has the inspection authority in that school building.
okay.
Clerk Baker?
Thank you. Just to answer your question, Trustee Joseph, when they had come to the township for another meeting, the school board representatives, the administrators for Anchor Bay, I did indicate to them at that time, as we went on to discuss some of the uses for this building, when we were discussing, I think, lease and purchase, we indicated to them that we may be having election activities there, and there may be the need for us to do something like this in the future, and they did not indicate that they had any issue with it at that time. But it wasn't specific, but in general terms, they understood we might be doing something like this.
In terms of the lease agreement, is that something that maybe Attorney Siebert's looked at? We're good, we're not creating any problems for ourselves in terms of the agreement with modifications to the building, or?
We are not. We're in compliance with the agreement.
Attorney Siebert is reviewed this, or is Attorney
I speak with
Kirsten?
the school regularly. And
You know, I didn't recognize you as a member of the bar, and that's why I was specifically looking for a legal opinion.
You keep going.
No, it's a legal question. You're not an attorney. Is it appropriate to ask a legal question
I
regarding?
talk with the school district. We're very good with the school district.
We have attorneys, Mr. Supervisor. I'm just asking, do the people's attorney feel that there's
The people's attorney is employed by the township, not the people's attorney.
So he can't speak. Okay, got it.
Okay, all right. Any further questions?
Simple question.
I have a motion by Clerk Barry, supported by Supervisor Kersten, to approve 10N. Clerk Barry.
Clerk Barry, aye. Supervisor Kersten.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
No.
Trustee Demink.
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Item 10O.
Item 10O is to approve a recommendation to re-enter into a one-year agreement with Diligent, formerly known as iCompass, for agenda management and video services in the amount of $19,189.46.
Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there support?
Support.
Trustee Vosberg. Clerk Barry.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. So this is the software programming that we use for our agenda management software. It is not just the Township Board agenda, it is all boards and commissions that now use this technology and this management, this software suite. The video services, when it says that, because I know that's a little perhaps misleading, but what that means is that is the portion or the module that allows us to timestamp and time date all of the sections of each agenda. So for example, if you simply wanted to look at agenda M, you don't have to scroll through the entire video sequence. It allows us to timestamp those so that anyone from the public who would want to look at anything particular can look at that one item. So that's what that video module portion of it is. Currently, this is the only, there's many software solutions for agenda management out there. Well, many, there's a handful. However, at this time, we do not have any other, there's no other vendor who could accommodate a changeover for us. We do plan to next year put this particular product through an evaluation because it's been several years since we have had it. But right now, this is our only option until we can get into 2024 and put this product through the regular procurement process, just as a review to make sure that it is still the best product for our use and that it is priced competitively. So we do plan to do that in 2024, but for right now, we would not have the capability to go to any other vendor for our agenda management and video services in that capacity right now for the upcoming year.
Thank you. Questions from the board? Questions from the board? Questions? A motion by Clerk Barry, supported by Trustee Vosberg, to approve item 10O. Clerk Barry.
Clerk Barry, aye. Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Trustee Demink.
Aye.
Supervisor Kersten.
Aye. Item 11, addendums. There are none. Item 12, public comments. There is a 3-minute time limit. The floor is yours. The timer will start when you begin to speak. Comments from the public.
Joe Kadich. I hate to get back into this, but we've got a real big problem here with the supervisor claiming to use the ARPA funds to buy a school that I'd like to remind you, we already own. I paid for that school over the last 35 years, maybe more. And if this, basically, if he wants to buy it, it should be just an asset transfer. They can set it up, it's depreciated fully. All he's got to do is give it to another government entity, charge him $1, and that's it. It hates like hell seeing this happen, but to see it happen, to buy it again, it's like you buying your house, living in it for 35 years, and then buying it back again because you want to continue living there. If you're going to do this, do it smart. Don't waste the money we've got in ARPA funds and other grants that could fix the system, the whole sewer and water system that's gone to hell. Even over Thanksgiving, how many lines went down? We lost water to how many homes because you say there's more water pressure? Because those lines are old. If they'd have been replaced, you wouldn't have had that problem. When actually Accavetti took office and the whole administration that ran the water department left, there was probably 5 streets that had to have the water lines replaced. Accavetti did 1/2 of 23 Mile, didn't do the rest of them, and didn't do the other streets. My street's got 10 patches in it at least. It's probably 70 years old. And it bugs the hell out of me to see that you don't worry about it. The last time we were here, when I said I was out in the middle of the night looking at the water running down Jefferson because this pump station failed, you said it didn't fail. Well, where'd the water come from? You haven't bothered with it, you're ignoring it, you don't want to be having any problem attached to it, that it was your problem. And that really is bad. And something else that came up that I found out about, I'll give to you, that your people in Lansing didn't tell you, they're working on a bill to allow basically any government entity to be sued if they don't take care of the water, and it can be found, you know, if you flood a basement or anything, that you can be found 51% liable for it. If it's your fault, if you're 51% of the problem, you're liable for it. They just had the same problem in, I think it was Bloomfield Hills, and they lost $9 million because they were sued because they didn't take care of the water department, and people's basements flooded in that. You're doing the same thing here. You people that went to the township meeting that where, what, 70 or 80 people showed up to say what happened to them and how their house was hurt or destroyed. You ought to remember that. You're working for them. You're not working for this guy here.
Thank you. Time's up.
Give it.
Any further comments from the public?
Mike Rayner, Jack Grove Lane. I guess appropriately called the bus stop guy, since I'm going to talk about bus stops here. Kind of talked about the absence of Q&As before. I have a letter here from the township I was really impressed with. This was exciting. From the township to SMART, saying, I'm writing to you in hopes that we can meet and discuss the bus stops in Chesterfield. We are in desperate need, I like that part, and that we only have one secure bus stop out of the 20 that we have. And in this case, they were only talking about Gratiot Avenue. So hoping we can meet, so I kind of wondered, have we heard back? I mean, are we going to meet? This was a memo from November 13th. So again, Q&A, but you know, whatever. I thought it was interesting, though, that we didn't mention the need on 23 Mile Road. Well, it's because we don't have any. We didn't have any. But I've just been a little advocate myself, so I'm sure my complaint probably went on deaf ears. But as it turned out, we do have bus service coming on the 8th of January through Chesterfield on 23 Mile Road. But to my great disappointment, it's stopping at the border of New Baltimore. So hooray for Chesterfield, but a disappointment for New Baltimore. So I was kind of surprised that we didn't feel that there was any need for bus service on 23 Mile Road when we talked about the need for it on Gratiot. So just a little surprise there. But anyway, it's happening. The other thing too is, just as an aside, I do have 6 new benches going up tomorrow morning, as a matter of fact, on Gratiot, which maybe the people who complain about the chairs will relax a little bit, but we'll see. We'll see. I have a hard time being optimistic. Just a little follow-up on last week when I was concerned about the intersection of 22 and Fairchild, and I was told that that is not our border, so don't worry about it. Well, actually, Fairchild is in some of Chesterfield, basically from 23 to 24, so that is part of our border, as it turns out. And of course, the fire department, when they're answering calls, they have to go up 22 to, follow Fairchild through 23, 24. I mean, it's a serious intersection, and I think it deserves more attention than it's getting. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Further comments from the public?
Janice Young. Real quick, I found an article on June 21st of 21 in The Voice where members of the school board said Sugar Bush Elementary would not be sold. So I just find it very interesting that they're now wanting to sell it to us. Other than that, I just kind of want to speak about our police presence here in our community. Our township is branded, as it's right behind you, the gateway to Anchor Bay, and it's just that, a gateway. We have a large amount of traffic that just basically passes through our community, and I have to wonder what our police do to monitor that. I worked in Harper Woods on the service drive of I-94 south of 8 Mile for over 20 years, and I can tell you, people didn't speed, have tinted windows, loud exhaust, or turn on red when it was posted not to, etc. They didn't do those things because they knew they'd get pulled over and get a ticket. And the ones that did were the ones that were just passing through, and they would get caught every time. I see Chesterfield police cars driving around all the time. I don't particularly see them pulling people over, taking radar and that kind of thing. Do we have officers that are dedicated to traffic patrol? I don't know what our current staffing numbers are for police officers, but I know that we did hire 6 new full-time officers this year, so I hope to see more patrolling of the roads, because I think we could really use that. I work on Gratiot, and I've seen 2 really bad accidents. One, a Jeep was underneath a semi, and then just last week, a car was flipped over on its side up against the curb. So, you know, we need help out there. We need help from the police out there. And it seems like it would be easy picking to generate some extra revenue for the township. And on that note, it's been a long year. I've learned a lot. I had a lot of good group of neighbors, residents. Truly grateful for all of them and all the support. Hopefully I can meet more of them next year. I'll probably not be at a few of the meetings next year, so you're welcome for that. But on that note, Clerk Barry, are we allowed to email in for regular board meetings and have our comments read during the board meeting? That's all I have. Merry Christmas to everybody, and have a blessed New Year.
Thank you.
John Speaka, Chesterfield Township. I want to say Merry Christmas and Happy New Year's to the Chesterfield Township residents. It's been an exhausting, long year. Unfortunately, again, you know, the majority of this board is a dictatorship. I mean, it starts with Supervisor Kersten all the way down. And until there's a change on the board, this is what we're going to get as residents. One of the things that I tried to think about was, what was the one thing that this board did in a positive manner and a negative manner that stuck out this year? The one thing that came to mind was Josh Baker. Josh Baker, a hero, a warrior, just an outstanding officer, was just tossed aside, and Supervisor Kersten, while on vacation, you know, it had, I think it was a police captain, another officer, go to his house and fire him. So just going back to the Josh Baker case, I want to tie that in reference with Porter and Black, how this board was tripping over each other. And when I say the board, I'm talking about Supervisor Kersten, Kathy Vosberg, Brian DeMink, and Treasurer Elliott, on who could be the first one to support Porter and Black. Well, what they should have been supporting was Josh Baker. I didn't see any support besides Trustee Joseph and Trustee Anderson come out, and Cindy Berry for Josh Baker. That was it. Nothing else. But yet, you know, when something comes up for the police department, it's a dog and pony show that they support the police department. The police department knows who supports the police department. They hear us every week. They see the actions that board members take. They're not stupid. They're very intelligent men and women. The other concern, I couldn't think of anything positive that I could say that came out of this board. I mean, there was nothing that I could think of. I wish one of these board members can tell me something that they did positive, because I can't think of something. My major concern, Clerk Barry, is with this early voting. I would think that this room right here would be the perfect scenario to do the early voting. And the logic behind that is it's in the township building here. It's a secured building. Security is like my biggest concern on that off-site property. I didn't hear anything about cameras, where the machines are going to be kept, and what sort of security is going to go in there. So that's my major concern. If you could address.
Any more comments from the public?
So, it's once again another end of the year board meeting, and for many years now, gosh, now I feel really old now, I've always come up here and asked what the board members were willing to do for themselves and for the community to improve. A New Year's resolution, should you say, on how you can become better for the community as you are in leadership positions. However, with what Mr. Speaker just said, it is very, disheartening what has happened over the past year, which there is nothing but distrust coming from the majority of the board to the residents. And if you don't want the residents being this distasteful toward you, perhaps listen to the grievances and ask yourself, am I part of the problem or am I part of the solution? And if you're a part of the problem, it's never too late to change. It's never too late to look at yourself and say, maybe I did something wrong, maybe I did a mistake, and can I fix it? Can I outreach to the people who are having these complaints and try and fix this? Because you are elected board members, you are members of the government. You decided to be up on that board. And people voted you in for your trust. But that trust has been lost. And remember, next year is a very contentious election year. We all, unless you have goldfish memory, we all remember how rough 2020 was. I think 2024 is going to be far worse. This is important to take note. You have a primary process and a general election that are going to take place, and there's going to be a lot of mudslinging, of name-calling, of downright disrespectful attitude. I highly recommend that you heed this warning now, to act appropriately, to take a stand, not to get down into the mud, be you running for re-election or be you someone in the audience who may run for the seats. But in order to earn back that trust, it's not just about the personalities. It's about actually committing yourselves toward helping people in your position. You're one of only 7 positions in a community of nearly 50,000 people. Some of you have been up there for almost my entire lifetime. Just take note of that. Take note of what the impact you can have is, and how you can change that for the foreseeable future. Because 4 years is still a long time. And if you're planning on being up there for another 4, it may be impactful. So have a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
Thank you, sir. Any further comments? Any further comments? Bring it up to board. Trustee Anderson, start with you.
Okay, without discussing the merits of tonight's expenditures, they were in the neighborhood of $301,000. I guess I'll just hope everyone has an excellent Christmas and holiday, and set this set this behind until January. Take care.
Trustee Joseph.
Thank you. I'll try within the 3 minutes I have, but Mr. Kadich brought up a couple of very good points on the front end and during public comments. Where does the money come from was what you started with, and you were promised, as all the residents were, public hearing on the ARPA money. The supervisors took a shot last week at a resident who recorded a Parks and Rec meeting where he basically tells his audience that it's in the bag, it's going to be purchased, and I didn't even realize we voted, but apparently they did. And anybody who has a question about why a 50-year-old building in the township is a great deal for the township, but the township offices, which is less than 35, requires millions of dollars because it's a hovel. So the logic isn't quite there, but he's running the show, and you know, as he said, anybody that has a question is referred to as a naysayer. The comments by Ms. Young, when you spoke about the vehicles and the question about lights, bars, and so forth for the retrofitting, I know exactly what you did because Trustee Anderson and I had the same conversation. It is a public service, not a public safety vehicle. So those departments have changed names. Public Works is public service. So these are not retrofitted with lights and bars. The discourse is completely avoidable. The question that Mr. Kadich asked during the presentation on the tax abatement was just a very straightforward question. And to treat it just the way that you're always treated, we'll answer it at the end. What point does that make? But it's the same kind of problem that we run into when residents ask for a simple question and they're told, this is a business meeting, we don't have time for that, you can do alternative ways of communicating and you can send an email, and then the email is responded, get a FOIA. And so I'm going to consult with the attorney, not Mr. Kersten, who I didn't realize is a member of the bar tonight, but the actual attorney. And if a resident asked for an email that I'm on, provided that it's not stamped privileged and confidential, meaning it came from the legal counsel, I will simply email that to you. You don't need a FOIA. You don't need to spend money and all of that to get information that one public official that you pay for sends to another public official that you pay for on equipment that you pay for. You'll get it. There's no need to be so arrogant in our response to our residents or each other. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year.
Thank you. Trustee Domingue.
You call me?
Yes, all yours.
Mrs. Young, with regards to your comment from the police department, right now there's currently one traffic car. We used to have two. And I know who that officer is, and he's writing tickets like crazy. They usually run 3 to 4 cars on a shift, and they're busy, as some of us call it, taking runs or shagging runs. This board gets a printout, I don't know, we get it every day, Dave from Anderson. The guys are taking calls. So the other guys are taking runs, the traffic car writes tickets. So I see the runs, so does Dave, so does Hank, so does the whole board. The police department's busy. This township is a busy township. You might not see it, I see the runs. So they're doing a damn good job, and they're gonna keep doing a damn good job with the manpower that they have available. But there is a traffic car, we had 2, wait a minute, let me finish. We had 2, 1 was reassigned to the schools, so right now we have 1, but we're working on putting the other one back on the road soon. So that's the way it works. I mean, some communities have a bigger department for traffic. Chesterfield, we had 2, 1 guy went to the schools, now we just got 1. And I know he writes tickets because every day on my way home, I see him on certain streets. He's on Jefferson, he's on Cotton, he's on 23, he's on Gratiot, so he's out there. That officer is definitely writing his tickets. And with that, Merry Christmas to all, and to all, good night.
Trustee Vosberg.
Thank you. Excuse me. It's been a great year as far as I'm concerned, living here in Chesterfield. I'm happy to be of service to the people. Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Clerk Berry.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Just a couple of questions because they've come up several times, so I'm just going to use a few minutes. No, I don't accept public comments via email. The public comment section of the meeting is for members of the public to inform the governing body of their views. That's the purpose for it. Not everybody uses email or anything like that, so it's an in-person opportunity for people to communicate with us. If, however, I do receive an email from a member of the public and they ask me to disseminate it to the board members, I will do that for them via the email system. So your voice will be heard. I won't do it publicly, and it wouldn't be appropriate for me to do that. I don't know of any clerks who do, so you just get into a very difficult position when you do that, and it's not recommended. So that's the answer for that. With regards to the security issues and why we don't use this building and the questions regarding that, this building, in order for us to use it for what's required for early voting, and when you see early voting, you'll understand it better, this room would not be sufficient. We would need this room and the senior room and the hallway coming from connecting the two, plus our back offices in that area. It's quite an operation. I will be having a number of open houses and informational seminars as well to inform the public of how we do what we do. It's a fascinating process. I will tell you that early voting is challenging for all of us who administer elections. The other thing that I'm not sure everyone is aware of is that we're actually part of making history here, because we have never had in the history of the United States, and Mr. Wharton will probably appreciate this, we've never had in the history of the United States a decentralized election state like Michigan to have early voting, as well as the other mandates of 22-2 that we've passed. So we are going to be literally making history next year, all of us here in Michigan, so with regards to elections. But there's a number of other issues as well. We looked at 3 different sites. This was one of them, and just in order to have the least amount of impact on other government operations, the Election Commission exhaustively looked at that. Supervisor, facilities, a number of other departments were involved in those conversations, and ultimately the Election Commission, which is consisted of myself, Trustee Anderson, and Trustee Vosberg, decided that what we have come up with is the very best option for all of our residents, so to deliver the services to facilitate early voting. So would love to talk to you more about that. It's actually much more complicated and detailed, but I know everyone would like to get home, and I'd like to wish everyone a Merry Christmas, Happy New Year.
Just some quick comments. We'll continue to follow the engineer's plan for the rehabilitation of the Chesterfield Interceptor as that moves forward. Thank you for approving that tonight. We'll continue that. There is definitely a request for additional funding to offset that cost, or at least cover it all in the future with our legislators, both at the state and federal levels. We'll continue that conversation. In regards to the continuation of enterprise fleet leasing, I introduced that plan, and that plan does work, and it will, as we continue to grow, I think it will be much easier for the management within the township as to how we manage our fleet across the board. The school purchase is again mischaracterized. One of the options is to use ARPA funds for the purchase. That's just one of the options, not in the bag. We haven't even worked out the purchase agreement, which is still underway. So we'll present, my hope is to finalize the purchase agreement for that school in the coming months of January. In the coming month of January in 2024, we'll address that at board level. And yes, Mr. Rayner, there is a presentation scheduled with SMART. SMART did come to us. We've engaged them a long time ago. They are expanding their route down 23 Mile Road. They didn't have a rollout date yet. We are giving them a presentation in front of their executive committee in January. Honestly, we'll continue to move the township forward in all levels, in all departments, in all aspects, and I would like to welcome RoboVent and its builders to Chesterfield Township, and we'll continue to work on that front to offer development to the township where the master plan and development is allowed. So with that being said, there are no closed session tonight. I will take a motion to adjourn at 9 o'clock. Motion by Trustee Demink, supported by Trustee Vosberg. Clerk Berry. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting adjourned.